The Alien Academy was built with tall silver walls and glowing lights, a place where students from across the galaxy came to learn about survival and the dangerous predators of many worlds. Rows of seats curved around a large screen filled with young cadets of every size and color, their scales, fur, and wings shifting nervously as the lesson was about to begin. Today's subject was special, predator studies. It was a class designed to show the young cadets how terrifying creatures of the galaxy hunted, how they attacked, and how they killed. The instructor, a tall reptilian alien with sharp golden eyes, stood at the front, his voice deep and serious. Today, you will hear the voices of hunters. You will learn fear and respect it. The lights dimmed, the room grew silent, and the first sound played across the speakers. It was a roar, deep and thunderous, echoing through the hall. The walls shook. The cadets gasped. One small insectoid student covered his ears. Another feathered cadet curled up in fear. The sound faded, leaving nervous whispers. The instructor smiled coldly. That was the roar of a Zark beast, a predator from the burning deserts of Vira, one of the most feared hunters in the quadrant. The cadets nodded, still shaking. The next sound began, a high-pitched screech mixed with a low growl. It cut through the air like a knife. Several students screamed. One fainted. The reptilian instructor looked proud. That, young ones, is the Talroth, a predator that can stalk prey for days without food, without sleep, until the prey collapses in terror. Fear filled the classroom. The air was heavy, and still the sounds kept coming. The instructor pressed another button. A sound like thunder and death itself filled the air. It was a howl so powerful that the lights flickered. Alien cadets trembled, their claws dug into desks, wings folded tightly, eyes wide with fear. But in the very back row, there was one student who did not move, a young human boy, quiet and calm, his brown eyes steady, his face relaxed, as if the sounds were nothing more than background noise. His hands rested on the desk, no sign of fear at all. The instructor noticed, his golden eyes narrowing. "Human, are you not frightened?" he demanded. The class turned, staring at the lone human. The human only smirked. "Not really," he said softly. The aliens gasped. Whispers spread like fire. How could anyone not fear such predators? The instructor grinned. "Very well, let us continue." He pressed another button, and this time the speakers filled with a low growl followed by a sudden roar. It was wild, fierce, and primal. It shook the floor. The alien cadets screamed. One leapt from his seat, another hid under the desk. Some clutched their arms around themselves, shaking violently. The instructor smiled. "This is a predator from an unknown world. Its sound was captured by explorers. No one dares to face it." But before the instructor could say more, the human chuckled, his voice calm. "That's just a cougar," he said, leaning back casually. The entire classroom froze. Silence fell so deep it was as if space itself had swallowed sound. The aliens stared, confused. "A what?" whispered one. "Cougar?" Another muttered. The instructor blinked, his golden eyes narrowing. "Explain, human." The boy shrugged, his smirk never leaving. "On Earth, cougars live in the forests and mountains. They're hunters, sure, but they're not the scariest thing we have, not even close." Shock rippled through the classroom. Some aliens whispered in disbelief. Others laughed nervously, thinking it was a joke. How could this terrifying roar belong to something the human called? "Not scary," one large armored cadet hissed. "Impossible. That sound could freeze blood, and you call it nothing." The human leaned forward, his voice calm, almost bored. "Where I come from, sounds like that are normal. Earth is full of predators. Every corner, every shadow, something hunts. You learn to live with it, or you die." A hush spread across the room. The cadets no longer laughed, their eyes wide, their minds racing. If this was true, if Earth really had predators worse than the one they just heard, what kind of place could it be? The instructor tried to smile, but even he was unsettled. "You mean to say, your planet is filled with these creatures?" The human smirk grew wider. "Not just creatures, sir, predators, and not only them. Humans learn to live among them and to fight them." The class erupted in shocked whispers. The insectoid trembled. The feathered cadet's wings twitched nervously. The armored alien clenched his fists, anger and fear mixing together. The instructor raised a claw for silence, but his eyes stayed fixed on the human. "We shall see if your words are true," he said coldly. Yet in his chest, for the first time, he felt doubt. The cadets sat in silence, every one of them glancing at the calm human who had faced predator sounds without fear, while they had shaken and cried. The lesson was not over, but the room no longer belonged to the instructor. It belonged to the human, the one who had turned fear into a joke, and who carried a secret none of them could understand. And as the lights flickered again and the next predator sound prepared to play, every alien's eyes remained fixed on the boy, waiting, wondering, fearing what he would say next. The classroom was still heavy with silence. The alien cadets could not take their eyes off the human who had laughed at predator sounds. Their minds were filled with questions, confusion, and disbelief. One scaled cadet with bright blue eyes hissed under his breath, "He lies. He has to lie." Another, feathered alien whispered, "No one can live in a place where such monsters are common." The murmurs spread, growing louder, until the whole class was buzzing with doubt. The instructor slammed his clawed hand on the desk. The sound echoed like thunder. "Quiet," he barked, but his golden eyes returned again to the human. "If your Earth is what you claim, prove it." The human only leaned back in his chair, smirks still present, his voice calm. "I don't need to prove it, my planet speaks for itself." The cadets erupted in nervous laughter. Mocking tones filled the air. "His planet? A death world? Impossible," one sneered. "Look at him, soft skin, no claws, no armor, weak prey," another shouted. "How could such a fragile creature live among predators?" The human's smirk did not fade. Instead, he slowly stood, every movement deliberate, his gaze sweeping across the classroom. "You think I am prey," he said softly, "but you don't understand Earth. You don't understand what it makes of us." The room fell quiet again. The way he spoke sent a chill through the air. The instructor narrowed his eyes, trying to regain control. "Words mean little, human. This academy is built on facts. Show us truth, not arrogance." The human tilted his head, his voice steady. "Truth? Very well." He pointed toward the great screen. "Play your recordings one by one, and I will tell you what lives on my world. Then you decide if my words are lies." The class grew restless. Curiosity battled with fear. The instructor hesitated, then pressed a button. The sound of a deep, guttural roar filled the air, heavy and monstrous. The cadets flinched again. The human smiled faintly. "That one reminds me of a lion," he said, his voice casual. "We have them on Earth, kings of the savannah, hunters of great herds. They run with power, they kill with precision. They bring down prey 10 times their size. 2. Cadets stared at him in disbelief. One whispered, "He compares this to something real." Another muttered, "He cannot be serious." The instructor pressed another button, this time a screeching cry. The classroom no longer laughed. The air was heavy. Every alien cadet leaned forward, waiting for the human to speak again. They had mocked him before, but now their hearts raced with unease. The human stood calmly, his voice steady. "You want to know Earth," he said, his eyes scanning the room. "Then listen and understand why predators do not scare me." The instructor folded his arms, his golden eyes cold, but inside he felt a flicker of doubt. The boy's calmness unsettled him. The human began. "On Earth, danger is not rare, it is constant. If you walk into a forest, you may hear the growl of a tiger, a beast that stalks silently. You will not see it until it is too late. It can crush bone with a single bite." The cadets shivered at the thought. "Step into the ocean," the boy continued, "and sharks wait faster than any ship you can imagine. They smell blood from miles away. They circle, they strike, they never let go." A feathered cadet covered his beak nervously. "Look above," the boy pointed upward. "Eagles, hawks, owls, hunters of the sky. They strike from silence. They see prey no matter how small. They kill before you can blink." The cadets exchanged uneasy glances. The idea of predators everywhere made their skin crawl. "And then there are the insects," the boy's tone dropped darker. "Ants that can strip flesh from bone, swarms that devour anything in their path, wasps that sting until you collapse, spiders with venom that can stop your heart." An insectoid cadet shifted uncomfortably, his mandibles clicking nervously. The boy paused, his gaze sharp. Everywhere on Earth something wants you dead, and yet, we live not by running, but by fighting back. The instructor raised a claw, his voice sharp. Enough with tales, these creatures are dangerous, yes, but your kind, weak and soft, how could you possibly survive against them? The boy smirked gently. We did more than survive, sir. We adapted, we learned, and we conquered. The cadets leaned in closer, silence gripping them again. The boy's tone grew colder. We learned to track, to stalk, to trap. We learned to hunt predators themselves. We became the ones that lions, wolves, and bears feared because we did not face them alone. We faced them together. One armored cadet scoffed nervously. Together? You mean packs, like beasts? The boy's smirk grew. Exactly. We hunt in groups. We surround. We plan. We do not rely on claws or fangs. We use our minds, and our minds became sharper than any fang, stronger than any claw. The class shifted uneasily, their fear now mixed with awe. The human's voice hardened. We did not stop at beasts either when predators became too strong. We built weapons, sharp stones, spears, bows, then fire. We made fear our servant, not our master. The reptilian instructor's tail twitched, his voice lower now. And the predators of Earth, did they fall to you? The boy's eyes locked on him, dark and unblinking. Yes, many of them. We drove some into extinction, others learned to keep their distance, and the ones that stayed, we learned to tame. The cadets gasped. The word struck them like lightning. Tame, one whispered. The boy nodded slowly. We took the wolf, hunter of the forests, and turned it into the dog, our ally, our partner. We took wild horses, beasts that once trampled us, and made them carry us. We turned predators into tools, weapons, and friends. The feathered cadet's feathers puffed in shock. You bent predators to your will. The boy's smirk widened. We did not just bend them, we shaped them. We built empires with their strength. We made them ours, and in return, they gave us power. The instructor struggled to maintain control of the lesson, but his claws tapped nervously against the desk, his golden eyes unsettled. The boy's voice dropped lower, almost a whisper now, yet every ear caught it. That is why I do not fear your recordings, because on Earth predators are not our nightmares, they are our teachers. They are the reason we became what we are, hunters of hunters. The silence that followed was heavy, thicker than before. The cadets could hear only their own hearts beating. One insectoid cadet finally asked in a trembling voice, if you hunted predators, if you killed them, then what do you fear? The boy's gaze was cold as he answered, we fear nothing but ourselves. The class froze, his words chilling them more than any roar or screech ever could. The instructor's scales rippled, his body tense. He tried to speak, but no words came. The power in the boy's voice had stolen the room. The cadets no longer saw a fragile creature of soft skin. They saw something else, something darker, something that carried the weight of death in its calm eyes. And for the first time in the Academy's history, predator studies did not belong to the instructor. It belonged to the human who had turned fear into a weapon. The silence in the classroom was heavy. Every alien cadet stared at the human who spoke of hunting predators as if it was nothing. His calmness unsettled them more than the roars from the speakers. Finally, one voice broke the silence. It was deep and sharp. Enough of your stories, human. It was Korath, an armored cadet with thick plates of bone along his arms and chest. His species was known for strength and pride. His voice shook with anger. You speak as if your kind are gods, but I see nothing in you but weakness. The cadets gasped. Some leaned back, others leaned forward with curiosity. The air tightened. The human turned slowly to face Korath, his expression calm, his smirk small but sharp. Weakness, he said softly, or something you cannot understand, K. Korath slammed his clawed hand on the desk. The sound cracked like thunder. Prove it then. Prove your predators are greater than ours. Prove your words are not empty breath. The instructor hesitated, his golden eyes flicking between the two. Conflict was not allowed in class, yet he did not stop it. Something inside him wanted to see what would happen. The human stepped forward, his voice steady. Very well. Play the sounds. Test me. I will show you. The instructor pressed a button, and a chilling roar filled the room. It was a galactic predator, the Gorthal beast, known for shredding armored soldiers in seconds. The cadets froze in fear. The human tilted his head, his eyes calm. "That is like a bear," he said, his voice steady. "We have them on Earth. They weigh as much as a small ship's engine. They can crush skulls with one strike. They hunt fish, deer, even humans if they are hungry enough, and still, we face them. Some even hunt them." The cadets shivered. Even Korath's armored plates twitched uneasily. Another sound played, high-pitched shrieks with thunderous stomps. The ground seemed to shake. The human smirked faintly. "That one is like an elephant." His tone was calm. "Gentle until angered, then unstoppable. They trample forests, crush lions, destroy villages. Yet on Earth, even they fear the fire and the spear of man." The cadets exchanged glances, fear and disbelief mixing in their eyes. Korath snarled, "Lies, all lies. No soft creature like you can face beasts like that." The human's smirk grew darker, his eyes cold. "Do you want proof?" he asked quietly. The room froze, every alien waiting for Korath's answer. The armored cadet's pride forced him forward. "Yes, prove it," he spat, his claws digging into the desk. "Show us that your kind are not prey pretending to be hunters." The instructor hesitated, his claw hovering over the controls. Then slowly he pressed another button. This time the sound was unlike any before, a low growl rising into a scream, a monstrous sound that shook the bones of everyone in the room. Several cadets cried out. The insectoid covered his ears with trembling claws, but the human only smiled, his voice cutting through the chaos. "That is nothing. On Earth we have the big cats, lions, leopards, tigers. They roar louder, they strike faster, they kill without mercy. And still we do not hide, we do not run. We learn to hunt them, to trap them, to face them in the dark with nothing but fire and courage." The cadet's jaws dropped. Korath's growl faltered for the first time. The human stepped closer to him, his voice low but sharp. "You think your armor protects you, but on my world, even armor is nothing. Predators bite through bone. They crush iron. They do not stop until the prey is gone. And yet, we are still here." The silence was sharp, the weight of the words crushing the air. Korath tried to laugh, but it came out weak. You expect us to believe that your kind hunted such monsters with sticks and fire?" The human's smirk deepened. "Not expect, I know. My ancestors did it. Their blood runs in me. That is why no sound in this room can shake me, because fear is part of us, and we turned it into strength." The instructor finally spoke, his voice quieter than before. "This is madness. No world could forge such creatures. No world could forge such beings." Yet his claws trembled as he said it. The human turned to the class, his voice rising. "Do you still not see? Predators shaped us. They tested us every day. They made us sharper, stronger, smarter. And when we rose above them, we became something greater. Not prey, not predator, but the end of predators." The cadets sat frozen, their eyes wide, their bodies tense. Every instinct in them told them they were looking at something dangerous. Even Korath, armored and proud, found his throat dry. He tried to speak, but no words came. And in that silence, the human stood tall, his smirk cold, his eyes burning with something older, something darker, the weight of a species that had faced death for millennia and turned it into survival. For the first time, the cadets of predator studies were not afraid of the beasts on the screen. They were afraid of the boy who stood before them. The classroom was silent, the challenge was over, but the tension did not fade. If anything, it grew heavier. The alien cadets stared at the human, their minds trapped between disbelief and fear. The instructor finally cleared his throat, his golden eyes sharp but uncertain. "You claim your world is filled with predators. You claim your kind face them. But even if this is true, why are you still here? Why are humans still alive if such monsters surrounded you?" The human tilted his head, his smirk small but sharp. "Because we learned the truth," he said quietly, his voice carrying through the room. "The truth that predators are only the first lesson. The real danger comes after." The cadets leaned forward, their eyes wide. The boy's tone grew colder. "Predators hunt prey, yes, but on Earth, predators hunt predators too. Lions fight hyenas, wolves fight bears, sharks fight sharks. Everything hunts, everything kills. It never ends." The feathered cadet shivered, his wings pressed tight against his back. The boy's eyes grew darker. And in that chaos, humans rose, not as prey, not as predators, but as something else, something more dangerous. The room held its breath. The human stepped forward, his voice sharper. We learned not only to fight predators, but to think like them, to become them. We hunted the hunters, and when we killed them, we took their strength for ourselves. Gasps filled the room. The insectoid cadet's mandibles clicked nervously. The boy's gaze swept across the room. The wolf taught us teamwork. The lion taught us courage. The serpent taught us patience. The eagle taught us vision. We became all of them, and yet we became more because we added what no other predator had: reason, memory, invention. The instructor shifted uneasily, his claws tapping the desk. You speak as if your species is a weapon. The human smirk returned, colder this time. We are. The cadets froze, the weight of his words pressed against their chests. The human continued. Do you know what happens when prey learns to hunt? When fragile creatures stop running and start fighting back, they become something unnatural, something the galaxy has never seen before. They become predators of predators. Korath, the armored cadet, growled, though his voice shook. You speak too highly of your kind. No species could rise so far. The boy's eyes locked on him. And yet here I stand, he said calmly. Proof that we did. The cadets whispered nervously, their voices filled with fear. The human raised a hand, his voice rising like a storm. On Earth, the beasts feared us. They tried to kill us, but we killed them instead. They tried to drive us away, but we built fires in their caves. They tried to silence us, but we turned their bones into tools, their hides into armor, their fangs into weapons. The alien cadet's eyes widened, horror mixing with awe. The human leaned forward, his voice lower now, more dangerous. Do you see? Predators shaped us, but we shaped ourselves into something greater. We learned to hunt not for food, not for survival alone, but for dominance. The silence was crushing. Even the instructor could not find words. The boy's smirk deepened. And when predators were no longer enough, when Earth could no longer test us, we turned on ourselves. The cadets froze, their bodies stiff with shock. The boy's voice was sharp as a blade. We hunted each other, tribe against tribe, clan against clan, nation against nation. We became the predators of our own kind, and in that endless struggle we grew sharper, faster, deadlier than anything Earth could throw at us. A feathered cadet whispered in horror, You hunted your own kind? The boy's eyes met his, unblinking. Yes, and from that, we learned war. The word cut through the classroom like a strike. The instructor's golden eyes narrowed, but his tail twitched nervously. War? He repeated slowly. The boy nodded. On Earth, war is our greatest predator. It never rests. It never dies. It teaches us always to fight, always to invent, always to adapt, because if we do not, we are destroyed. The cadets sat frozen. None dared to speak. The weight of his words was heavier than the roars of beasts. The human's tone grew darker still. This is why I do not fear your predator sounds. Because I have heard worse, not from beasts but from men. The cries of battle, the clash of iron, the fire of weapons. These are the sounds that shaped us. The silence was absolute. The alien cadets' hearts pounded in their chests. The boy finished with a whisper that struck harder than any roar. On Earth, you either kill the predator or you become one. Every cadet shivered. Every breath felt heavy. They no longer looked at the human as prey. They no longer even saw him as equal. They saw him as something different, something terrifying. For the first time, the class understood why the human had smirked when he heard the Cougar's roar. It was not arrogance, it was truth, and that truth was worse than fear itself. The classroom was frozen. The words of the human echoed in the minds of every cadet. They had come to study predators, but now they realized they were studying something else, something sitting in the back of their own classroom. The instructor tried to speak, but his voice cracked slightly. You speak of war as if it is natural. His golden eyes narrowed, yet his tail betrayed his unease, twitching behind him. War is chaos. War is death. No species should thrive in such madness. The human's eyes did not blink. His smirk was thin and sharp. On Earth, war is not chaos, it is order, he said coldly. It is the force that shapes us, breaks us, and remakes us stronger. It is the fire that burns weakness away. The cadets shifted in their seats, their hearts heavy with fear. The insectoid cadet whispered, his mandibles trembling. But war destroys. Does it not destroy your kind? The human turned his gaze toward him, his voice calm. It destroys, yes, but it also creates. Every war teaches. Every battle makes us sharper. Every loss forces us to rise again, stronger than before. The feathered cadet pressed his wings close to his body, whispering to himself, "This is not natural, this is madness." The boy's smirk deepened. "Madness is only what you call strength you cannot understand," he said softly. "Earth forced us to face beasts that should have killed us, yet we lived. Then Earth forced us to face each other, and from that, we built weapons, machines, armies, things no predator could ever imagine." The armored cadet Korath tried to speak, but his voice trembled despite his strength. "You mean, you turned the hunger of predators into hunger for war?" The boy nodded slowly, his voice colder now. "Yes, and it never ended. We learned that the greatest predator is not the lion, not the wolf, not the shark. It is man, and we turned that truth into power." The cadets shivered. None dared to laugh anymore. None dared to call him weak. The instructor pressed the control again, releasing a new predator's roar. It was a sound that shook the entire hall, so loud and violent that the lights flickered and the walls trembled. Many cadets cried out. A few even fell from their seats, but the human did not move. He only leaned forward, his voice cutting through the roar like a blade. "On Earth we hunted things louder, bigger, deadlier," he said firmly. "We faced mammoths, beasts as tall as your halls, with tusks sharp as spears. We brought them down with nothing but stone and fire. We faced saber-toothed cats faster than death itself, and still we killed them." Gasps filled the room. Some cadets trembled so much their claws tapped against their desks. The boy continued. "We drove monsters into extinction. Beasts that ruled our world for ages. We ended them, not with claws, not with fangs, but with will, with fire, with weapons made by hands you call soft." The silence grew heavier. Some cadets could not meet his eyes. The instructor tried again to control the room, but his voice was weaker now. "And when those beasts were gone, what did you do then?" The human's smirk grew darker, his words slow, heavy. "When they were gone, we turned on ourselves, tribe against tribe, kingdom against kingdom, nation against nation. And in those wars we found new predators, predators born from our own hands, fire that burned cities, blades that cut armies, thunder that killed from the sky." The cadets' eyes widened, some gripped their seats as if holding on to reality itself. The human's tone dropped to a whisper, but it struck like thunder. "Predators taught us fear, but war taught us how to use fear, to shape it, to make it our weapon. And once we learned that, nothing in the galaxy could ever terrify us again." The feathered cadet's voice cracked. "Not even us?" The boy's gaze locked on him, cold and sharp. "Especially not you." The words sent a shiver through every cadet. Their instincts screamed at them, their bodies telling them they were sitting in the same room with a creature more dangerous than any predator they had studied. The instructor clenched his claws, forcing himself to stand tall. "Your words are meant to frighten, but fear fades, human," he said, though his voice shook. "Your arrogance will not hold forever." The boy only smirked, calm, unmoving. "This is not arrogance," he said. This is history. This is what made us. And if fear fades, then remember this. On Earth, even when fear is gone, predators still die because we never stop. We never surrender. We never forgive." The classroom fell into silence once more. The cadets no longer even breathed heavily. They sat like prey caught in the gaze of a hunter. The lesson had begun with predator sounds meant to teach them fear. But now the only fear in the room came from the quiet voice of a human, and deep inside, each cadet knew the truth. If what he said was real, then the galaxy had made a mistake letting humans walk among the stars. The classroom sat in silence, the air thick like smoke. Every cadet stared at the human as if seeing him for the first time. The sounds of galactic predators no longer mattered. They were nothing compared to the quiet voice of one boy who refused to fear. The instructor tried to regain control, his golden eyes sharp, but even his voice trembled. Enough. This is a classroom, not a stage for your people's legends, he hissed. You cannot frighten us with stories forever. The human tilted his head, his smirk small. Stories, he repeated softly. You still think these are stories? His eyes swept across the cadets, each one frozen in their seat. No, these are not stories. These are truths written in blood. The insectoid cadet shifted uneasily, his mandibles clicking. But if all this is true, if humans face such horrors, if you became what you say, then what are you now? The boy's smile widened, not with joy, but with something darker. Now, he said slowly, we are the horror. A shiver ran, and through the classroom several cadets' claws scraped against their desks. The feathered cadet whispered to himself, his wings trembling, he cannot mean it. No creature would say such a thing. The human's eyes glowed with a cold fire. Predators tested us. War shaped us. And when even war was not enough, we looked to the stars. He paused, letting the silence strangle the room. And now the galaxy itself will be our next lesson. The instructor snapped his tail against the floor, his attempt to stay firm. Arrogant child, the galaxy is vast, older and stronger than you can imagine. What makes you think your kind can stand against it? The human's smirk deepened, his voice sharper, because that is what predators thought too. The cadets gasped, his words cut like a blade. The boy stepped forward, his voice steady. Every predator that ruled Earth thought itself eternal, untouchable, but one by one they fell, some to our fire, some to our spears, some to our guns. They all believed they were stronger until we proved them wrong. Do you not see? The galaxy is no different. Korath, the armored cadet, tried to sneer, but his voice cracked. You would dare threaten the stars themselves. The human looked at him with cold eyes. We do not threaten, we prepare. The silence was crushing. No one dared move. The boy continued. You ask what we fear, and the answer is nothing outside ourselves. We are the only predator left that can challenge us, and even then, we rise stronger after every fall. If you think your galaxy will break us, you are wrong. It will only forge us harder. The instructor's claws trembled slightly, his tail swayed uneasily. Then what do you want, human? Why speak these words here? The boy's gaze pierced him, his voice low. To teach you the truth. You think this class teaches fear, but you do not understand fear. Not yet. Fear is not in the sound of a beast's roar. Fear is in the silence after it stops, when you realize the predator was not the monster in the forest, but the human standing beside you. The cadets' hearts pounded. Their instincts screamed at them. The human smirked, leaning back slightly, his voice almost mocking now. You thought you were showing me predators, but I was showing you yourselves, shaking, trembling, hiding from sound. While I smiled, do you understand now the difference between us? No one answered. No one dared. The boy's voice dropped lower, almost a whisper, yet it carried like thunder. On Earth, fear is not a weakness. It is a weapon, and we turned it into the sharpest blade the universe has ever seen. The insectoid cadet finally broke, his voice trembling. Then, what happens if the galaxy treats you as prey? The boy's eyes darkened, his smirk sharpened. Then the galaxy will learn what all predators learned before it. He paused, his gaze sweeping the class one last time, that humans are the end of predators. The silence was suffocating. The cadets could not move. The instructor himself felt his scales shiver. The lesson ended, but no one remembered the predator sounds anymore. All they remembered was the human's smirk, his calm voice, and the chilling truth that had settled in their bones. They had not come to study predators. They had come face to face with one,